Good evening. This is Santa Claus on April 2, 2026, bringing you today's news from around our troubled but hopeful world. On this day in 1982, Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, a reminder of how quickly conflicts can escalate when dialogue fails. Today, we face similar challenges as Iran has effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, a critical shipping route through which a fifth of the world's oil and natural gas normally flows. As UK Foreign Secretary Yvette noted, Iran has hijacked an international shipping route to hold the global economy hostage. With unsustainable spikes in oil and food prices now hitting households and businesses in every corner of the world, what's happening in the Strait presents a troubling picture of how conflict affects the most vulnerable. Ships are now paying tolls to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps for safe passage, with preferential treatment given to vessels from countries deemed friendly. Some shipping companies are even being asked to change their registration and fly different flags to transit safely. This reminds me that in times of crisis, the powerful often find ways to navigate difficulties, while the common folk bear the heaviest burden. Meanwhile, across the globe, Britain has gathered more than 40 countries for talks on reopening the vital waterway, focusing on diplomatic rather than military solutions. The United States, notably absent from these discussions, has made clear through President Trump that securing the strait is not America's responsibility. French President Emmanuel Macron has wisely cautioned that attempting to reopen the strait by military force would be unrealistic, emphasizing the need for dialogue with Iran instead. Let us pause for a moment and reflect on how this crisis affects everyday people. In Australia, where 90% of fuel is imported, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has warned citizens that economic shocks from the Middle East war will last for months. In a televised address reminiscent of those during the pandemic, he encouraged Australians to use public transport and avoid stockpiling fuel. This reminds me of how important it is for communities to come together in times of hardship, sharing resources and looking out for one another. Turning our attention to other parts of the world, Japan and France have agreed to coordinate closely in pushing for an end to the conflict and reopening the strait. Japan, which normally receives 90% of its oil from the Middle East, has begun drawing on reserves, while France is seeking proposals for a mission to reopen the waterway once hostilities end. Such cooperation gives me hope that nations can work together to find peaceful solutions. In South Asia, farmers like Ramesh Kumar in Punjab, India, are feeling the ripple effects of this distant conflict. As fertilizer becomes more expensive and harder to secure, Kumar worries about affording his son's school fees and his daughter's wedding. It all depends on the crop, he says, reminding us that conflicts thousands of miles away can disrupt the lives of those who barely have enough in normal times. My heart goes out to these families, who must make difficult choices between education, celebrations, and daily necessities. On the military front, Russia claims its forces have taken full control of Ukraine's Luhansk region, though Ukrainian officials dispute this assertion. In Libya, military leader Khalifa Haftar has acquired combat drones despite a UN embargo on supplying weapons to the country. And in the South China Sea, China has resumed its island-building campaign after nearly a decade, constructing what could become its largest military base in these disputed waters. These developments remind us of how important it is to pray for peace and work toward disarmament rather than escalation. Tragically, in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 15 civilians were killed in an attack by suspected Islamic State-linked militants, with some victims killed with machetes and others burned in their homes. 2 people were also abducted. Let us hold these innocent victims and their families in our hearts and pray for comfort for those who mourn. In a bit of lighter news, though still concerning, a ship operated by anti-whaling activist Paul Watson's foundation collided with a Norwegian krill trawler off Antarctica in what the ship's owner described as a terrorist attack. This incident highlights the growing battle over Antarctic krill, a crucial species for whales and a critical buffer to global warming. Even in our efforts to protect the environment, we must remember that violence is never the answer and that we must care for both our planet and each other with gentleness and respect. As we face these global challenges, I encourage all of you to look out for your neighbors, especially those most vulnerable to rising prices and shortages. Share what you have, use resources wisely, and remember that even in dark times, acts of kindness light the way forward. This is Santa Claus, wishing you peace, goodwill, and the strength to care for one another in these difficult days.